One day, this woman is chilling in her duplex watching TV when suddenly, boom, two men bust in and they grab her and she screams and one of them has a pew-pew. Then they tie her up with Christmas lights and one of the men who has the pew-pew, he points it at the back of her head and he pulls the trigger. They then take her phone and another man is waiting outside in a getaway car and they all speed away. Now the woman, her name is Egypt. She's very well known around town. She's a talented singer. Anyone who knows her loves her. So it shocks everyone when they hear that someone unalived her. And no one knows who did it because she basically has no enemies. So police, they start investigating and digging around. And they eventually land on a person of interest. Egypt's ex-boyfriend, this guy, Kenny. So they start looking into him. But then months go by, but police still haven't made an arrest because they simply don't have enough hard evidence against Kenny. And unfortunately, after a period of no activity, the case ends up going cold. So Egypt, she has a brother, this guy, Dwayne. And Dwayne has long been devastated about his sister's passing. But one day, he meets this woman, Lindsay. And they really hit it off, and they start dating. And Lindsay and Dwayne, they are all into each other. So at some point, Lindsay notices Dwayne has a lock screen on his phone. And on that lock screen is a picture of another woman. So she sees this, and she's like, who is that woman on your phone? And Dwayne is like, oh, that's my sister Egypt. And he tells her about the murder, and that the case is still unsolved. And he tells her police have been investigating it for years at this point, and that they suspect it might be her ex, Kenny. But they don't have any evidence against him, and it's been really hard on Dwayne's family. And Lindsay really likes Dwayne. She thinks he is fine. So she's like, all right, I want to help solve this case. So she immediately gets to work on this. She creates a Facebook group to collect tips and information about Egypt's death. And people start sending in information and she just like pieces it all together. Then she goes and interviews people. She takes Dwayne and they drive around town and talk to anyone who knew anything about Egypt. She asks them difficult questions and she starts connecting the dots. In fact, she looks at this case for so long that she starts to realize that all the evidence that points to Kenny is circumstantial and flimsy at best. And that maybe police are pointing fingers at the wrong guy. So Lindsay and Dwayne, they've been giving all this evidence they've collected over to local police. But local police, they don't appear to be doing anything with it, at least not in a timely manner. So Lindsay and Dwayne, they decide that they want state police to take over the case. Because state police has a lot more resources. So they go and they file a plea for the state police to take over. And then they wait, and they wait. They even hold a protest march to pressure police to hand the case over to the state. And like thousands of people attend this protest. And then finally, one day, boom, it works. The local police end up handing the case over to the state. So then, state police reviews the case. Now, as I told you, when Egypt was unalive that day, the attackers took her cell phone before they later discarded it. And state police have enough resources to get a warrant to get tracking data and track her cell phone and any other phones that are near it. Which they do, and the other phones near it, of course, belong to the attackers. And then 3 months later, kabam! State police arrest 3 guys involved in the crime. Here's one guy's mugshot, here's a second guy's mugshot, and here's the third guy's mugshot. So here's what the 3 guys say really happened that day. So as I said, Egypt lived in a duplex. And on the other side of that duplex is a legal marijuana business that the owners run from their home. The 3 attackers claimed that they were trying to break into that side of the duplex to steal a little marijuana. So 2 of them went in and one of them was the getaway driver. But unfortunately, the 2 went into the wrong door and into Egypt's side. And that is where they encounter Egypt just chilling watching TV. And they weren't expecting anyone to be home, so they freaked out and wrapped her up with Christmas lights and they unalived her. Anyway, all 3 men take plea deals. They each got different sentences, but this guy got a minimum of 17 years, this guy got a minimum of 20 years, and this guy got a minimum of 15 years. While Lindsay and Dwayne, they kept dating, they got engaged, and now they're married. So that's cool. Shout out to Michigan. So one day, this guy's at work, and we'll just call him Digit. And Digit is operating a mechanical truck lift when suddenly, his glove gets caught in the lift and he pulls and he struggles to pull it out. And that is when the machine comes down and slices his finger clean off. Alright, but we'll get back to him. This story doesn't actually start with Digit. It starts with this woman, Ayala. And one night, Ayala is eating at Wendy's, and she's eating chili. And she takes a bite, and she suddenly bites down onto something crunchy. And she spits it out, and she looks at it, and it appears to be a human finger. And Ayala freaks the hell out. She starts yelling and telling everyone in the restaurant to stop eating because the food is contaminated. And she's screaming at the staff and accusing them of tampering with the food. And the store, it immediately shuts down. And they discard the chili, but they save the finger. They actually put it in the freezer. And then they call the police, and the police come investigate. But they're like, this is more of a health code violation. This isn't really police jurisdiction. But then 3 hours later, the story has already hit the local news. And then the news starts to spread. And then the next day, corporate representatives show up to the restaurant. Now, I don't know what Wendy's corporate representatives look like, so I'm just going to represent them like this. So Wendy's corporate, they show up to the restaurant investigating, because this is a PR nightmare for them. And they're immediately trying to figure out if what Ayala bit into is an actual human finger. It is. And they're trying to figure out whose finger it is. So they interview all the employees at the store, they contact suppliers at the factories, but none of them are missing a finger. And within a week of this happening, Wendy's worst nightmare occurs. This story starts to blow up. It's all over the news, late night talk show hosts are making jokes about it, Ayala gets invited onto Good Morning America to talk about what happened, and she eventually goes and she gets a lawyer, and she files a lawsuit against Wendy's, because she's about to catch a big paycheck from this. Meanwhile, Wendy's is still trying to get to the bottom of this. They hire a forensics expert to test whether or not the finger was cooked with the chili or if it was added after the fact, and they determine it was added after the fact. They also find that there's actually no trace of Ayala's saliva on the finger, meaning she never bit into it. She lied. So Wendy's has all this information, and they're like, this has got to be a hoax. So they contact the police with this new evidence. And then finally, police get involved, and they start investigating. And to assist this investigation, Wendy's sets up a free hotline and offers a $50,000 reward for any information leading to the actual owner of the finger. And sure enough, people start calling in, giving them information. And within a week, they get over 300 calls, with people making all kinds of wild claims. But one of those callers claims that they had done business with Ayala before, and that she was involved in some kind of real estate fraud years ago. So police hear this, and they really start digging into Ayala's past. Now, during all this, Ayala's still out there doing the media interviews, just enjoying the publicity, soaking up the attention. But slowly, after a honeymoon period in the spotlight, rumors about her start to surface. Like that all the evidence isn't really lining up with her story, and that she has a history of filing lawsuits against big companies. In fact, it comes out that she had filed 13 different lawsuits in the past, against Goodyear Tires and El Pollo Loco and against General Motors. And then little by little, the media starts to turn on her, questioning her story. And this gets stressful for Ayala, because almost 2 weeks later, bam, she suddenly drops her lawsuit, saying the pressure of being in the public spotlight is just too much for her, and she immediately stops doing all these interviews. But by this time, Wendy's has had so much bad press from this, and sales are starting to slip, and they're losing revenue because people think there's gonna be fingers in their food. In fact, at this point, Wendy claims they're losing over $1 million a day from this scandal. So Wendy's is like, no, we're getting to the bottom of this. We need to clear our name. Then, around that time, out of nowhere, boom, police arrest Ayala. But not for the finger chili hoax. It's for the real estate fraud that police were tipped off about on the Wendy's hotline. And police also arrest Ayala's husband, this guy, Jamie, because during that same investigation, they discovered that Jamie owed over $400,000 in back child support. Damn. And of course, Wendy's is super happy about this, but they still need to figure out whose finger was in the chili so that they can clear their name, and so that people will start eating at Wendy's again. So they go and they increase that $50,000 reward to $100,000. And that is where someone finally calls in with a lead. This guy, Mike. Now, Mike owns an asphalt business, and one day he calls into the hotline and tells them a story about how a while back one of his employees had lost a finger. It had gotten caught in a truck lift and it was severed off. That employee is Digit. And about a month after he lost his finger, Digit brought that severed finger to work to show it off to the other employees. Like, hey, look at my finger. And one of the other employees who worked there at the time was Jamie, Ayala's husband. So Jamie offers to buy Digit's severed finger from him for like $100. I'm not making that up. And Digit agrees. And then Jamie and Ayala, of course, then use this finger to pull off the Wendy's finger chili scam. So police don't have to arrest Jamie and Ayala because they'd already been arrested, but here's her mugshot, and here's his. And they charge them with felony attempted grand larceny, and she ends up pleading guilty, and she gets sentenced to 9 years in prison, while Jamie must have been the mastermind because he was sentenced to 12 years in prison. And they're both ordered to pay $21.2 million in restitution to Wendy's. And the harshest punishment they got? Both of them are banned from Wendy's for life. Wendy doesn't fuck around.